Let's bring in my political panel for today. Jane Hume is a Liberal Senator for Victoria. Peter Khalil is the Assistant Defence Minister. Welcome to both of you.
Thanks very much.
Just starting on the news today, inflation 3.8%. That's not good news, Peter Khalil.
No, it's higher than we'd like, but it's lower than we inherited. I think that's an important point. We've always known that this job is an ongoing job, and people are still feeling the pressure, cost of living pressure, and that's why a lot of the cost of living measures that we've designed and implemented and put in place are there to provide that relief to people. And I think it's a responsible economic management and an agenda. We've brought debt down, we've delivered real wages growth, we've created 1.2 million jobs, reduced unemployment, and there have been 3 interest rate cuts this year in 2025, 2 after the election.
Now, right?
Yeah, but I think that's up to the RBA, not you or Jane or myself.
So
they're an independent central bank, so they'll make those decisions on a whole range of variables. I think the important point, though, is it's gone from 3.6 to 3.8. It is below 4%. You know, when they were in government, it was over 6% and going up. So I think we've done a pretty good job to bring it down, but done it in a way that still provided cost of living relief for Australians.
Jane, it is higher, but you know the argument about it being lower than it was is also equally true. And the Treasurer's point too that it was flat in October. That's relevant too, isn't it?
Well, I think the proof point here is that the cost of living crisis continues on unabated. This is, I think, damning of Jim Chalmers and his economic management skills. He said that the inflation genie was tamed, that the dragon was dead, and that's clearly not the case. I mean, do you remember the days when Australian families used to not really give 2 hoots what the inflation figure was? You know, back in the day when it was under 2% or just between that 2 to 3% band. Now, of course, everyone's hanging out to find out what the inflation data is because they know that the interest rate decisions that the RBA make are entirely dependent on whether the government has managed to keep inflation under control. Clearly, that is not the case. I don't think we can expect to see the RBA make any moves on interest rates anytime soon. And while Peter says, well, they've cut rates 3 times, they went up 12 times, Peter. They went up 12 times under you. Clearly, they're not going to be cut anytime soon. And Australians that are struggling to pay their mortgages, struggling to pay their bills at home, are going to be concerned about that.
Peter, isn't the issue, though, if I can frame a question to you, that it is persistent? It looks like a big issue. It's not deniable by anyone. Yeah. So given that, it does mean that actually the RBA could even hike rates. I mean, that would be diabolical, wouldn't it?
Well, I'm not going to speculate about what the RBA is going to do next month, the month after, or the rest of it. What is in our control is responsible fiscal management. And I'll put up Jim Chalmers and this government's economic record against theirs any day. It was funny that Jane was talking about how Australians weren't too concerned about inflation. They were when you were in government, when it was above 6%. And the fact is, we have brought down debt by $200 billion. It was almost tripled to almost $1 trillion under the coalition. We've actually provided real economic relief, cost of living relief for Australians, but done it in a way that doesn't heat the economy. It's designed in a particular way through bill relief, for example.
Sure. So bill relief, okay. Thank you. You've taken me to my point. The energy rebates. Do you think they need to be extended now?
Well, these are all things that the Treasurer and the Treasury will be looking at.
Sure, I know.
How do we provide support? Well, it could be support in different ways to the public. And I think what we've done as a government has been quite clear in providing that relief, prioritising cost of living relief, but doing it in a way that manages inflation as well and bringing inflation down, frankly, from the high of 6% that was there when we inherited government. I mean, that mob, when they were in government, it's rich when they talk about it. Their debt ballooned. We had to reduce it by $200 billion. All they did was deliver deficits. We delivered 2 surpluses and a third-year deficit, which was well under expectations.
I've heard some of those points before, so I'm going to move on. Energy rebates. You've been critical about the way the government's managed this, but people deserve to continue to get them, don't they?
Well, they deserve lower energy prices, don't they? And in fact, that was what...
You can't make that happen straight away.
Well, it's funny. Amazing that you should say that, PK, because that's exactly what Chris Bowen promised. In fact, Anthony Albanese promised it too. He promised $275 off your energy bills. That was before the election. After the election, no one has actually said the words 275. Not for 3 years.
That's right.
And
but
now they're
the
recycling.
decision...
Yep. And now you're recycling taxpayer money, taking their taxes, giving it back to them in the form of rebates and telling them to say thank you for that, which is unsustainable. What we need to see is a plan to bring energy prices down. That is not what we're getting from this government. In fact, no one can say when energy prices will come down. Okay. I think that's extraordinary.
So what's your view on energy rebates and whether they should extend them?
I think we should deal with the source. We should deal with the source of the problem.
So just specifically, you don't think you should extend them?
Well, we also know that increased spending by this government, which has increased dramatically in the last 3 years, is one of the causes of rising inflation. The RBA have come out and said that. So if we keep spending more money, more and more money, we're going to keep inflation higher for longer, and that's going to increase the cost of living, make the cost of living worse. Well, how about we deal with the problems at their source rather than put the band-aids over the mouth?
Brings me to another economic news sort of in that space, which is cuts to the public service. Now, you're going to say they're not cuts, but I bet if the Liberals were planning a 5% decrease in, the number of staff at the public service, you would be calling them cuts, because they are.
Well, first of all, we have not asked agencies or departments to cut by a percent or anything like that. Let's be really clear about what's going on here. It's about asking the departments and agencies to look at their programs, how they administer them, make sure that they're being effective and efficient with taxpayer dollars. I don't know why the Liberal Party or the opposition is arguing against that. It's about discipline and exercising discipline and fiscal management, and as we should. Good governance is about, and good government is making sure that we are spending taxpayer dollars wisely.
But when the Liberals talked about cutting the public service, you went
But you keep saying cutting the public service. We're talking about making sure that the way that taxpayer dollars are spent effectively and efficiently. Now, we've done this since we came into government. We've actually found over $100 billion in savings so far. And $6.4 billion we found in reducing spending on external labour and contractors and all this kind of thing. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that approach. I think that is the correct approach because taxpayers deserve that their taxpayer dollar is spent wisely and efficiently.
Jane, you were the shadow finance spokesperson before the election. I know that, lots of things happened during that time, but you had promised some cuts to the public service. Does this, carry on your view that there needs to be cuts to public service?
I think it's extraordinary that this wasn't clear before the last election. This is an enormous cut. It's a 5% efficiency dividend is what you're asking for. 5%. Your current efficiency dividend is 1%. This is on top of that. It's the equivalent, we heard today, of cutting around 22,500 public servants. And somehow that escaped you 6 months ago. I just find that hard to believe. 6 months ago, Katie Gallagher and Jim Chalmers and Anthony Albanese said that the public service was right-sized, that we didn't need to make any cuts. But now, 6 months later, whoops, we need to do this in order to balance the budget.
You should have been upfront.
We found, just for example, $6.4 billion in savings by reducing spending on external contractors and external labour.
Sure.
That ballooned under your government.
Are
you arguing that we shouldn't be looking for efficiencies throughout the
government's got bigger
government?
Isn't the question, let me have my turn because I'm in the middle here and, I like to make myself relevant on this show.
You are very relevant.
Well, I've got to be relevant here. Isn't the point that you weren't upfront with people? That's all. I mean,
we took that to the last election. We talked about the fact that we were going to reduce the 6 point. We took to the last election the fact that we were going to reduce spending on external contractors and external labour and all those things. That is something that we did as a good government and as we should do.
And the size of public service increased.
We should do. And there should be always governments. They're not static. They're not in amber. We are sitting there. We look at where we need to find efficiencies. I think it's the right thing to do to make sure that we're spending taxpayer dollars effectively and efficiently.
I reckon the whites of your eyes are showing with my EFO and coming up in a month's time, and you've realised that the books are so bad that you're going to need to do something.
The books are so bad. We've reduced the debt that you ballooned out by $200 billion.
Actually, debt's increased. It's now about to hit a trillion.
We've reduced it by $200 billion.
Okay.
That was there in the colour.
All right, we're going to move on. There's an Australian election study out, and you've seen it probably, Jane Hume.
Only in passing.
Okay. It shows that the Liberals were not regarded as the better economic managers. And you were the shadow finance spokesperson, so that must land uncomfortably with you.
Well, I've got to admit, I did. When I saw that, look, there shouldn't be a surprise. This is a survey that is taken after the election, after people have cast their votes, after they've seen who has won and moved on. People do tend to reinforce a decision that has already been made. So while I don't want to disparage the quality of the
it's a very
review,
good
that's
survey.
Right. And let's face it, News Poll and Resolve, in the lead up to the election, said the exact opposite, that the coalition was the better economic manager, that people trusted the coalition to grow the economic pie. So I think this is a kind of revisionist.
Okay, but there is one follow-up question on that. There is, however, some evidence, I think, more broadly to say that saying that you'd not have a tax cut at the last election, having higher deficits, they were the policies you took, and you've talked about what went wrong at the election. It didn't help you, did it? People thought you weren't running an agenda that they wanted to vote for.
Well, I'd be really interested to see what would happen if that same survey was taken today, whether they would agree that the Labor Party is the better economic managers, because as we've seen, inflation has now gone up. Interest rates are not coming down again anytime soon. The cost of living continues to rise. 40% increases in the cost of energy and no solution to bring energy prices down. I don't necessarily think that that is the hallmark of a good economic manager.
Okay. I just want to ask you, unless you've got some burning point to make, but I do need to move on at some
to respond to that. Is that okay?
Briefly.
The economic management question, I mean, I think all credibility of the coalition has been shredded, because when they were in government, all they delivered was deficits. They doubled the debt even before COVID. They had a share of, like, the spending as a share of the economy was up to a third. They were not good economic managers. And since we came into government, we have addressed all these issues, as I said earlier, created 1.2 million jobs, reduced unemployment, provided cost of living relief, reduced debt by $200 billion. So they were in shreds. And then you've got Ted O'Brien, your shadow treasurer. And so this is not all Jane's fault, by the way, even though she was shadow finance, whatever. Ted O'Brien's at the National Press Club saying that he's going to keep all these coal-fired power plants open. And you know how much that's going to cost? $17 billion. He's going to put a wrecking ball through the economy and the budget to keep all these coal-fired power plants open that were slated to close.
You're not.
There's no economic
you weren't
credibility.
At the press club and I was.
Well, I didn't watch the whole thing.
And he didn't say that. And he didn't say that.
I didn't watch the whole thing.
He didn't say that at all. And B, why is it that you guys get Treasury to do so much work on our policies? How about you guys use your public servants, what's left of them after you've cut them, to do some work on your own policies to bring energy prices down? Do some work on your own policies to reduce taxes. Do some work on your own policies
we cut taxes.
to put the budget back into balance. Stop concentrating on us and concentrate on you.
Quick
it's 2.5 years until the next election. We will come back to the Australian people with an agenda that demonstrates that we can not just manage the economy, but we can give them a better standard of living as well.
Sounds like an election pitch. 1 minute, just quick on that survey. Peter Dutton, the least popular person to run for Prime Minister for decades and decades. Are you surprised?
I am surprised. You know how I feel about Peter. He's a lovely man. You guys did a great hatchet job on a good man. I don't know how you sleep
so
with
you
yourself. Sleep at night on that one.
Wow.
I think that's the real show. I would have loved an opportunity to properly introduce the real Peter Dutton to the Australian people. We didn't get that chance and we won't get that chance. But we move on now. Susan Lee is our leader and she is very different to Peter and is very well accepted by the Australian community. And I think that that's a good opportunity for the next election.
I think, the people I spoke to during the election campaign, when it came to Peter Dutton and the coalition, their concern was around the policies that he was putting forward as a leader, which was rejecting tax cuts.
We know what
no
happened.
Climate change action, no action on housing.
But he's a good bloke, isn't he?
And the fact is this, can I just say this? You've got either policies that are like the $17 billion to keep coal-fired power plants open, or no policies at all, and you're tearing each other to shreds because you can't even land on a policy. So you need to do that work.
Because you were mean to him, weren't you? He's a good bloke.
I see a lot of meanness across the board, but let's
not personal.
Let's end
I don't
on a
think it
nice
could be personal
note
at all.
here. Thank you to both
That's
of you.
pleasure.
I'd like to